Welcome to the Fishbowl Podcast. I'm Sydney.
And I'm Brooke.
And today we are following back up on our previous episode about dating and answering all of your burning questions about it. So, let's dive in together. Okay, so after our previous episode, we asked you guys to send in your questions about dating. And we just wanted to go through some of them. And some of them are just common questions that we've received over the years or that we've also had over the years. So, yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, I think we got lots of good questions in, and we're going to do our best to tackle them all to the best of our ability. But we're really just excited to share our experiences and encourage you guys as well.
Yes, and just so you know, some of this is our opinion. Maybe not necessarily rooted in scripture, some things are, but some things are just things that we've gone through and experienced. So it may not relate to everyone, but it's just us sharing a little piece of our life that might impact you, or it may not. You have a different situation than us.
Yeah.
So. A lot of you guys gave us great feedback about our standards that we had. We talked about in the last episode, we wrote down qualities that we wanted in our future husband that God put on our heart that we wanted to see. And people wanted to know what kind of standards that we wrote down, Brooke.
This is a really great question, and I spent a lot of time praying over my standards. I can just share some of, aside from, the main ones, he's a Christian, he's pursuing the Lord, he's involved in a church, those are, huge for me. But there are some that I also pay attention to. For example, how is he treating other women in his life? How does he talk to his mom? Does he talk back to her? Is he rude? Is he polite? Does he respect her? Or
that's good to know too. How he talks to his mom is how he will talk to you and how he sees women. So
1,000%.
Even if he says no, it will kick in at some point.
Trust me, they can say on the first date, because guys can pose this stuff. They can say, "I love my mom so much." All of a sudden, you're on the phone and he's saying, "No, I'm not going to do the dishes. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to help you." You have to read through that stuff, because they can put on a front too. But maybe it's also not just his mom. It's how is he treating his sister? How is he treating his aunt, his grandma? All of that plays a role. Another thing for me is how is he doing in school? If he can't steward his school well, imagine how about a relationship. Is he cheating through all of his assignments? Is he lazy? Is he failing classes? Oh, it's important for me to have someone who takes care of themselves. Are they a total slob? Are they lazy? It's really important for me to have someone who's hardworking, driven, takes care of themselves.
My standards list I actually used in my vows at my wedding, and I read them out loud, so then I put them with my wedding vows, so they're kind of up, but I remember some of them, because I can just look at my husband and know he has those.
Cringe. Okay, that's really sweet.
Okay, so here's just a few that I wrote down. It started as a one-page thing, and then over the years, it's a 2-page thing now.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Pursuing God's heart before he can win mine. That was important to me. Driven, I think you kind of talked about that. Has goals and meets them. Not influenced by his friends. This was one that I saw a lot of guys, they were one way, but then when they were around their friends, they'd be influenced to make different decisions. Yeah. Not even sometimes bad things, but just that people could talk them into doing something maybe they wouldn't ordinarily do. Yeah. And that to me was so important, that you could be around people but have your own sets of morals and values and hold your own character no matter where you were. And that's a thing too. I don't know if this was specifically written or how it was written, but something about is the same person in whatever circle he's in, which is definitely my husband. He is the same guy. You're gonna find him if he's with his friends, if he's in the supermarket, we don't even call it that, we call it grocery store. If he's here at home with me at work, he is the same person. He doesn't hide it. He's not a different person anywhere else. I put not of the world, and ministry minded. Not that he's someone that is called to ministry, but that we can do ministry together, because that's an important part of my life. That's an important part of our upbringing, is ministering to people, doing life with people. And it basically comes down to he's not pulling me away from the church and away from that lifestyle, but he's ready to do it with me.
Right.
So those are just a few of those things. But God might have different things on your heart than he did on ours. Probably similar values and stuff, but I think another big one too was us waiting till marriage. I know that's like a big.
Yeah.
I know that should be a given, but you need to write that down. Like that needs to be something you're always thinking about and praying about.
And praying that he is also wanting that too.
Yeah, praying for that because just because they can say that doesn't mean that in a year or two of dating they don't just suddenly change their minds.
Yeah. Also how they respond to those boundaries. Are they how are they responding to that?
That's true. Saying like, hey, I don't want to, this is a boundary that I've set, I don't want to do that. How do they respond to that? Are they respectful of that? Are they not? Do they try to push it subconsciously? You know, or manipulate you to think it's okay when they push those boundaries.
1000%. Something else I was going to say, that's really important to me is like, is this person consistent in their word? Kind of like what you were saying, but if he says, hey, I'm going to take you on a date at 6 p.m. on Saturday, does he show up at 6 p.m. on Saturday? Is he rescheduling? Is he late? Is he like, can we push it? And I get things happen. But if this is like always going on, that really bothers me. That was important to me. So that was
become their character.
One of my standards. Also, another really good question we got in that I love this question. It says, what if I'm not attracted to him, but he meets my standards?
That's
a good question.
I mean, we can kind of share our personal things. I think this is also another like opinion thing.
Yeah.
I do think God wants us to be attracted to them. He wants us to have chemistry with him. Mm-hmm. If you ever read Song of Solomon, those people, they were attracted to each other.
Yeah.
And that is important in a relationship. I know for me, my husband became more attractive when not that he wasn't before, but like I got more attracted when I saw he was pursuing God, when he was leading me, when he was, walking his own walk with God. That was attractive to me. Like, I didn't see any other men the way that he was, and so I was like, that made me attracted to his heart, and then like attracted to him.
Yeah.
But if you're just not attracted to someone, I don't know, what would you say?
Girl, like, I think you should be attracted to the person. I think that is something that's like the best thing you could do for their heart is like, you don't want to be with someone you're not attracted to. You shouldn't want that person to have a girlfriend who is not attracted to them. Like, that's just like mutual respect and mutual like agreement towards each other. But I do agree with what you're saying. You can grow in attraction. But if it's just not there, that's
first,
okay.
And you know it's not there.
Find someone,
changing them, not being like, I thought he was going to be 6'5", but he's 5'11". Like, I think you should really see through, like, what is more worldly and what is godly. But I agree, like, you should be attracted to someone if you're spending the rest of your life with them. If you're not attracted to them and you've prayed about it, God's probably closing that door. And just because this one person meets your standard doesn't mean there's not going to be more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with that fully. But.
I know we got, like, a lot of questions, and I think we've seen this too, people being like, but are there really any good guys left?
Yeah, girl, I asked that question so many times about like 6 months ago, and I'm telling you guys, God really, like, I thought about it and I prayed about it a lot, and God really was like, here, I'm going to show you. And I have met so many, even in college, just like godly Christian men who are pursuing the Lord, and like, it feels just almost just like a LOL right now. Like, I thought there was no one, and like, God has just consistently showed me that there is. So let that be some hope.
Yeah,
for
and
you.
Don't date someone just because you're like, well, he's the only one that meets my standards. I'm not really attracted to him, but he's the only one, so I must be who God has for me. No, like God will give you the desires of your heart. Like, don't settle for that. Just because you're not settling spiritually doesn't mean like you can't settle in other ways. So I agree. There are other good guys out there, but sometimes it can take time because they may not be that way when you meet them in high school, that they're going to be in the journey that they have to have in their faith, like when they become a little bit older and have to make their own decisions. Okay, what about this? What if your parents don't approve of someone? Dun, dun, dun.
There's a lot of things to go into that.
Yes.
For me personally, I trust my parents' discernment and wisdom, and I actually recently, like, gave them permission. I'm like, hey, if I'm dating someone and you don't agree, like, I want you to tell me. I would much rather my family tell me that they see something in him that I don't see that's a red flag than waste my time 3 years down the road and then be like, yeah, we didn't like him from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I gave my parents permission to say that because otherwise, like, I'm sure they would have, but, like, I don't know. I just don't want to waste my time, and I trust their discernment. If you have... I think there's exceptions to this. If you have parents who are not in the Word and not pursuing the Lord, like, and, you know, their opinions might be taken with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, if your parents are godly, wise people and they don't approve of someone, save yourself and listen to them. Mm-hmm. I can promise you they probably know better and they're seeing something in them that you're not seeing, and it's going to save you so much heartache.
I agree. I think that I don't know, you need to find out the reason why that they don't like them. I don't think that if we're talking about pastors, like people in ministry, I don't think they're not liking someone just because of, you know, the way they look or the way they talk. I don't think that would be the case. But if it's a character problem, something you need to pay attention to, if it's something that you're not seeing with them, I do think you should talk to your parents about that. If this is someone that you really hope to continue or to have a relationship with. I always trusted my parents. They would do, I mean, I know before, when I mentioned, when I was dating, when I mentioned Kurt to them, they were like, my dad already knew everything about him. I was like, that's a little scary. But they definitely wanted to make sure, like, we weren't getting into something that was going to hurt us in the long run. I do think our parents want the best for us there. I know when we were younger, I think, was it when we turned 15, each of us?
I think so.
My dad took us out. This was separately. So when I turned 15, my dad took me out to, like, get dinner. We did, like, daddy-daughter dates a lot. So he would take us out and spend time with us and kind of, like, treat us like how we should want our future husband to treat us. And he bought us, me at this time, a ring to wear where I would wear my wedding ring. And I thought it was...
A purity ring.
Yeah, it was a purity ring, basically. But it was also a commitment that, you know, whoever my future husband would be that would replace his band with a wedding ring would be someone that, like, my dad approves of, in a way. Which some people, that might sound scary. For me, though, it was like, I was wearing this because, you know, my dad gave me, like, this purity ring. And, of course, the purity is a thing in itself. But also that, like, I had a commitment to God and to my dad for my future husband. Yeah. And that was something that was really important to me. And then when you went out, you did that as well, right? He gave me one. Yeah. Yeah,
it was the same thing. And, like, as awkward as that might sound, like, I'm so grateful for that. And, like, it coming from my dad is a great thing because it shows, like, how, like, he modeled well, like, how I should be treated on a date and, like, by a man. And it showed that, like, I should look for that in other people.
I think there's, there's your parents, but there's also your friends that may not approve or have different opinions. Yeah. And I think you do have to watch out for that. Yeah, your friends might have some good insight, and honestly, there were times that I knew there were girls I were close to dating guys, and I was like, I, like, don't think that's a good idea. But sometimes that just wasn't my place to say that. Yeah, and it's not really their place in a way to say that to me. I think sometimes it can come from, I'm not saying everyone's like this, but it can come from a place of jealousy of you having something that they want, or and maybe this isn't, I don't know, I might be generalizing too much, because I do think some of my friends wanted the best for me, but some like would try to insert themselves, I'm not really saying friends, but, you know, they would insert themselves in a way that was unhealthy in the relationship and was not making it productive for me or for our friendship.
Yeah, I can also remember the first time I was dating, and a friend of mine kind of pointed out some red flags. And in this case, this was a godly friend, and it was real. It was valid. And I got so upset. I distanced myself from the friend. I felt like I was like, no, like, I'm not going to listen to her. This is, like, you don't know him. And in some cases, like, that's true, but it was something that was real, and like after I was like not dating that person anymore, like I apologized to her and I was like, I should have like listened to you. So I think if you're going to ask someone to tell you like, oh, I see a red flag in this person, like be receptive to that. It's hard. Like if someone says like, hey, I don't like the person you're dating, like if my parents said that to me, that would be hard. It would be really hard.
Consider that.
Yeah, but ask the Lord to like make your heart receptive to that. Be willing to be like, okay, if a godly trusted person in my life doesn't approve, help me receive that well and not rebel or try to make it some like Romeo and Juliet forbidden love situation.
Yes. There's so many times where girls would date a guy and they would say, and I think that we had heard this from my dad, like they would have a reputation and it's like, hey, just so you know, like they have a reputation for this and this, and the girl would be like, I can change him. You know, I can make him a Christian. I can
Famous
change
last
him.
words.
It's like, yes, and it's like you want to think you're the exception to the rule, but I've never seen it play out where you're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Like only God can truly change someone's heart, and you might be getting in the way of that by dating him and trying. You can't like take that on to be something that you have to do. That has to only be God, or else he's changing only for you, and that only lasts so long that can be sustainable.
Yeah. Another question on the contrary.
Sure.
Another question. What if your parents are like too involved? What if they're like all up in your business and they want to orchestrate the dating, and like what do you do in that case?
Like arranged marriage type vibes, or
no, maybe they just like ask you every detail, or like want to know everything, or want to insert themselves and tell you what you should do, and want to know what he's up to. Where's the line there? I don't. Our parents were never like that, but I think that's a real struggle for pastors' kids.
That's true, or others just being involved in the relationship.
Yeah.
I think our parents gave us space, and I think when we would ask for advice, they would give it to us. But that is hard because at some point, it's really hard because your parents probably do want the best for you. But at some point when you're married, and you're not married at the time, so it's not you and him together, but when you're married, it is you and your husband, and that's your family first. That's your priority, so you don't want your family jumping in. So at some point there's a boundary that has to be put in place there. But if your parents are being too involved, you also need space with that person to figure out who they really are.
Yeah.
So I think there's some sort of talk that has to take place about that.
Yeah, I think if they're like really interested and really involved, like it's fair to be like, hey, I'm gonna take some time and discern this for myself. I appreciate your support, but like I want to see if this is right for me. Even if you think it's right for me, like let me figure it out. And you can have that conversation maturely. How it's going to be received, I don't know. But
like, is there a reason why they're not like letting you alone with this person in a way?
Yeah.
Like, do they not trust you, or do they not trust them, or maybe they have trust issues themselves with that? But I think there's respectful parts that you have to respect. Like, for us, there were certain rules that my parents had, and we got to be within those boundaries, but they were very specific on things. And I don't know if this is the way the person that asks this question is like perceiving this, of like, oh, my parents are just too involved, like they won't let us alone in a room together, or blah blah blah. Like, my parents were very clear at the beginning. Okay, these are the rules. You're not going to be alone in your room together. Doors are open sometimes, but they would like allow us with those boundaries. Like, they wouldn't always be in the room with us, but we knew like they were around the house, and we were going to be in the living room. So like, there were certain rules that they had that we had respected, and we earned that trust over time.
Okay, so Sydney, I'm going to ask you this question that we got. I think you can speak to this well. It says, what if I'm dating a guy that goes to a different church?
Well, when I first started dating my husband, he didn't go to this church, to my church. And that was kind of a big thing for me, because I knew, like, look, I'm called to this church. This is my dad's church. I'm not going anywhere else as a pastor's kid. And so it was kind of like dilemma. He went to a Pentecostal church. No hate. It was different than my church. And he was like, why don't you come to my church one time? And I was like, okay. And I went, and it was very different. And then he came to my church. And at the end of the day, he fell in love with our church. He came alive in his faith at our church. And that, of course, is probably the dream. But I knew I didn't want someone that was going to take me away from my church. But that may not be the case for everyone. What are the odds, though, that you are going to meet your future husband in this specific church that you're at? Like, what are the odds? It's probably pretty slim that he's going to be going to your exact church and be the one that you're going to marry and you're going to stay there. So there is at some point going to be compromise. So you have to almost assume, like, he may not go to this church, which I didn't assume at first. I was like, he goes to another church. He must not be the one for me. But it's like, okay, he goes to another church. That's really great that he's involved somewhere else. And it wasn't necessarily my ploy to be like, you have to be involved here, or like, we're not getting married. But it was certainly my prayer that if we were going to be together, God was going to work through that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going to be, if God was calling me to stay at my home church, then like God was going to work it out. And it worked out great because he's so involved in like, has grown so much in his faith at our church. But you have to know that you're probably not going to meet someone that goes to this church, to your church. Possibly, maybe not. But at some point, that's going to have to be a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you're going to have to choose something.
You shouldn't be married going to separate churches. But in dating and working through that, like, it's okay to have go to different churches and talk about it and debrief after and visit each other's church. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Is it a non-negotiable for you to have someone that goes to your church? That's okay if it is. That was kind of for me in a way. I didn't tell him like, you have to be involved in our church. He found his own way because God worked through that. But like, if that's a non-negotiable, that's okay. But know that going into it, but give God space to like learn and work and have those conversations. Say, hey, look, like I see a future with you, but I am called to this church. But you may not be. You might be called. God might be working on him, and you might go to his church, or you might be moving. You might get involved in ministry somewhere else together. But it's just what God has on your heart, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong that they go to another church. I think it's great. But you want to investigate that too. Like, what does going to church mean to them? Are they saying like, oh, I went with my parents on Christmas and Easter before? Or are they involved? Are you serving at your church? What do you do at your church? What does your relationship with Christ look like at that church? Because you don't want them to be playing you. Either. What would you say though, Brooke? Because you're at college and obviously no one at your college or wherever you're at goes to our church. So you've had to have this conversation, I think, right, with people in a way. Like, you're not meeting people that go to your church.
Right.
Obviously.
Right. And I go to a different church in Gainesville. There's so many churches in Gainesville. It's so awesome. But I think it's great. I think for me it's important that like if I'm talking to someone, like they're open to coming to my church. Like if I go home and like say, hey, like you should come to New Walk, and they're like, absolutely not, like I would never do that. I've never had anyone tell me that. But like that would be a red flag. But like just being open to that, and like me being open to visiting their church, I think it's like a really cool thing to get to do that. But yeah, I think it's awesome. I love it.
I don't know, I feel like this is important to say, like, what if he's not a Christian? Like, you hear the phrase, like we said before, I can change him, I can bring him to Christ. Or maybe you don't say that, but you're subconsciously thinking it if you're dating them and hoping that they're coming to Christ. That's a big one.
I mean, I'm just going to say it. If he's not a Christian, don't date him.
Yeah, don't waste your time.
Yeah. That's as simple as it is. You could like him, or he could be a great friend, but like it shouldn't be going past friendship, because you're not equally yoked, and that should be like number one, like first bare minimum priority.
Yes, being equally yoked is important. If you're gonna start your relationship on that foundation, it is going to lead to a lot more hurt than you think. And also having to lay down your pride and know, like, you can't do this for your own. Wouldn't you want to know that God change someone because God did it, not because you did it, or that he's changed for you? Wouldn't you want to know that that he came to Christ because of God, not because of you, and because you had some majestic part in this? And God can use you, but like, you want someone to have true heart change, not for a moment, not for a person, but because they love Jesus and want a relationship with him.
Yeah. And like, I know there are couples where like something like this has happened and it works out. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but from the get-go, right now, knowing what you know now, do not do that.
Yeah, if you have the choice now, some people don't start out as Christians and they date people, you know?
Yeah.
Some people aren't pursuing Christ, but if you're pursuing Christ and you have the option, it's not an option. So, boom. Also, it's a great way. I know Brooke, she would have boys interested in her, and she would just invite them to church, and they would just come to church because they liked her. She wasn't giving them the time of day, but she was like...
I'd be like, hey, I'm not dating, but like, you can come to church with me.
Yeah, I'll be at church all weekend, come see me. And they would come to church. Some of them were low-key still involved in a way.
That's another story.
That's another story, but... Oh, someone asked... Brooke, we got a lot of boys writing into our podcast. What? They said, is Brooke single?
Like one.
Like one. Our dad.
Guys. Not dating right now.
Brooke is not dating right now. She's a free spirit.
I have committed to singleness for this season in my life.
Wow. What a gift you have. What a gift.
Is there any other questions?
Are there any other questions? I don't know.
Guys,
do you have any other questions?
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Don't forget, pray for your future husband.
Yes, please. Start that
He
tonight.
needs it. He needs it.
Yes. Well, guys, we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
Keep sending us questions.
Yes.
We love this kind of stuff. We'd love to answer them. There's no bad questions.
More content specifically related to dating.
Yeah.
And our next episode that's upcoming as well. We will see you next time in the fishbowl.